This is Ronnie. This is Waffle Talk. Welcome, welcome to the show. You see the title. You know who I am if you're on my Facebook page anyway. And you know what's about to go down. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you so much. Thank you. If you are, well, currently there's nobody watching, but if you're tuning in, watching right now, again, my name is Ronnie. This is Waffle Talk. Welcome to the show. And today, you see the title. It's called "You're a Misogynist." All right, and I already see somebody's anxious and ready to watch on replay for some odd reason. Shout out to you, Q. It should be interesting, because what I wanted to do really was, for once, and maybe not for all, but for once, kind of get on camera or on tape what I really believe. Within these last couple of weeks, or within the last few months, I've heard the misogynist. I've been called a misogynist, and I really want to dispel that. But before we get into that, some people may ask or may even care what I'm drinking tonight. This is straight Jack Daniels. Because I'm in my masculine right now, and I chose violence. So hopefully, it comes to some good use. I've been doing this lately too. The fragrance of the evening. Shout out to Kevin Sanders. Fragrance of the evening. Bentley Intense for Men. I like Bentley Intense for Men, actually. I picked this up at a discounter probably sometime last week. Maybe like Thursday. Picked this up at a discounter for about $30. Really, 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 really good. From a car company. I was very surprised. This is what they call a boozy fragrance, which means that there's some alcohol notes in here. It's either rum or cognac. I can't remember. But it's very high class, very good for the winter. Despite the fact that I've only gotten into fragrances like maybe a couple months ago, my nose is already kind of adjusted and is already seeking out the more complex fragrances, so darker things, which is crazy because I live in Texas and it's hot 80% of the year, and most of my favorite fragrances are wintertime fragrances, and this is one of them. So Bentley Intense for Men, you should check this out. Only about $30-$40 at discounters, and also it goes nicely with this. This is a Most Wanted by Azaro. I'm sorry, this isn't Most Wanted. This is Wanted by Night by Azaro. Huge compliment puller. I wore this a few weeks ago when I went out to a function, and as soon as I walked up to the bar, some woman turned around and was like, "Oh my God, you smell so good." Most Wanted by Wanted by Night by Azaro. All right. As far as men's news, I really don't have any this week. I got to do better with that. Just lately, I've been kind of wrapped up in this idea and questioning myself whether or not I truly am a misogynist. It's not something that I haven't heard before. I've pretty much been doing the same thing on Facebook for a long time. I remember in college, somebody called me like the king of Facebook, which I thought was ridiculous at the time. But what she really meant at the time, what she really meant was, for some reason, and I don't know where this comes from, I tend to have a very provocative way of communicating through social media. Even when I don't intend to be provocative or I don't want to ruffle people's feathers, the things that I say, and even if I feel like it's neutral, the things that I say tend to rub people the wrong way. Or maybe not even rub them the wrong way, but more or less just they feel they feel kind of bad sometimes.
Aww.
You know, I can say something as harmless as, you know, just talking about my. Oh, I'll give you an example. When I was in college, and if you went to Alabama State and you remember me from my freshman year, you might remember this. But back when Facebook notes were really popular, I was at school for about a month or so, and it was really my first exposure to any other culture other than Detroit. Like when I was growing up, my parents didn't really let me go out that much. Um, Granted, the neighborhood is dangerous. You try to keep your kids off the street, understandable. But I was exposed to a lot of different things my first year of college, and of course, being from the Midwest, a city like Detroit, going to a small town like Montgomery, Alabama, I was exposed to a lot of different things, and a lot of things were different. And I decided to make a note about it, and it was a very long note, but essentially, I just talked about, you know, what the girls were doing, what people were saying at the club, the STD rates that I was hearing about, the wild stuff that I would see on campus between guys and girls, differences between the North and the South, and how people moved and everything. And I thought it was just a harmless note because I was just explaining what my experiences were. And within maybe like an hour, I received a lot of different comments on that note that were telling me, like, if you don't like it, you should leave. If you don't like going, you know, Alabama State, you need to leave. And I'm like, when did I ever talk about not wanting to be here, not liking it, you know? But I guess I just hit on a couple of different buttons, you know. Some people, and I think in that time, that's when I learned too that the truth sometimes is a bit much for people. The truth can be offensive, which to me just baffles my mind. I grew up with my mom. She knows I used to like enjoy just shocking her with different things. And it wasn't like I was, you know, doing anything egregious, but some things I would say, do whatever, she knew, like I knew I would get a reaction out of her. And she always kind of knew that. But she would always tell me that, and sometimes I didn't mean to shock her. And this kind of goes into that point. Um, she would always tell me that I was honest to a fault, or she would tell other people, I'm honest, like Ronnie is honest to a fault. If I'm going to get in trouble for something, even if I tell the truth, I'm going to tell it anyway, because I'm going to take my lumps. Uh, and so I've always gotten into this habit of just telling the truth. I don't like to say anything that is wrong. I don't like to be wrong. Fair, I'll take that. Uh, so a lot of times, if I don't know something, I won't speak on it. If I feel like I might be misinformed, I won't say anything, or I'll do more research. You know, you hold yourself accountable. You do your research and you get smarter. Uh, and that's kind of just how I've always been. And so when I say things on social media, it's usually coming from some true place, whether it be by observation, facts, statistics, or whatever. I know that when I say things, it's not just some minority opinion. It's not just because I think it to be true. It's because I think it to be true, and I've spoken to many other people or have had many other experiences that have proved these things to be true. So, what tends to happen, says my connection is unstable, and that's perfectly fine because I don't think that I'm going anywhere. So, what tends to happen is that when I say things on social media, whether they be from a neutral place or whatever, people don't take too kindly to it. And then I'm told that I need to be cautious of people's feelings, and I get accused of being certain things. And definitely it comes up when I speak about issues dealing with women, my dating life, observations I've made, things that I've seen in the media and making commentary. Uh, people have always looked at those comments and statements as though they were some form of hatred. And I've never mean anything ill by what I do or say, but as someone wise once told me, you can't control how people feel about the things you say, which I guess is a strange part of my Aquarian nature, is that I I tend to not be emotional when I say things. Like, I'm a pretty straight shooter. I'm pretty direct, and I try to remain as logical and factual as possible. And when people react to me, my my reaction to them is like, why are you getting emotional about it? Is it true or is it not true? Because if I say something, honestly, when I say it, I want you to tell me whether or not I'm right or wrong. If I'm wrong, please tell me. I have no issue being wrong. It's just, again, in my Aquarian nature, you have to be able to give me some pretty sound logic in order to make me change my mind. And what I find on social media is that a lot of people don't. So, before I dive into what I want to dive into, let us get the likes up. It's 4 people in here. I know it's Facebook. Likes matter. If you haven't already, go subscribe to Waffle Talk Ronnie on YouTube. My YouTube channel so far, 13 subscribers. I got a Facebook group that has like 40 some people in it. 13 subscribers, perfectly fine. I haven't done as much advertising as I probably should. That's okay too. You can join the convo. The link is in the chat. If you want to chime in, if any of you can find my detractors, anybody who disagrees with me or feels like I'm a misogynist, by all means, tell them to come speak to me. But what I also find is that many people who feel that way, they don't really care to even care to even join in on the conversation. Most people who feel a certain way, about me, they have blocked me or unfollowed me on they have unfollowed me on Facebook. I saw a couple days ago one girl even like unfriended me. I didn't even know she went anywhere, but she really doesn't matter anyway. But the people who feel a certain way about the things that I say on here on this blue app, social media, Facebook, they unfollowed me, which is crazy because I'm like, you could just unfriend me. It's about the same thing. But I think what happens is that sometimes they want to come back, and just in case I say something, they want to be the ones to tell me off. It's crazy. The conversation is happening. The link is in the chat, and and feel free, by all means, if you think I'm a misogynist, if you disagree with anything, I'm all ears. I'm a pretty open book. People love talking to me about this shit, so I'll talk back. Join in on the link. Like, share, subscribe. All right. Like, share, and subscribe. Donate to the channel. Cashapp is $R Cleveland30. No channel updates as of right now. Again, I'm trying to move into more pre-recorded content. I've been considering actually doing 2 shows a week, one Sunday, one Wednesday. Wednesdays and Sundays are pretty like free days for me, so there's always something to talk about, something always on my mind. I don't have to wait a whole week to get it out my system. Get the likes up. There are 5 of you here on Facebook and only 2 reactions. We can do better than that. Absolutely, we can do better than that. So get the likes up, get the likes up, get the likes up, get the likes up. And that's pretty much it as far as that goes. So I've made a couple of notes to go along with this. The misogynist thing has been around for a while for me, and I've been accused of saying that for a while. Many people within the village seem to feel that that is what I am. I vehemently disagree, but I guess the village voice matters. So let's go ahead and figure out what misogyny is. But I want to start with something that I said on a post earlier this week. Actually, sometimes before I got called a misogynist the first time this week. And it's from Patrice O'Neill. Says, I hate living in a world where everything a woman is a good thing and everything in the world, I'm sorry, everything that a man is a bad thing. Let me say this again. Patrice O'Neill said, I don't like living in a world where everything that a woman is a good thing and everything that a man is a bad thing. I learned pretty well. I'll get to my history in a minute. But what I want to do first is kind of define our terms and figure out what misogyny is. I looked it up on DuckDuckGo, Google, and then I'm at dictionary.com. And so let me share my screen with you guys to see what the definitions is. So I'm going to start off with what I found on DuckDuckGo, because that's the site I've been using lately as my search engine. So DuckDuckGo says misogyny is, and this is from the American Heritage Dictionary of English Language, 5th edition. Nouns, all nouns, hatred or mistrust of women, hatred of women, contrast misandry. And we don't talk about misandry enough, but all of these things, of course, indicate some kind of ill feelings towards women. Let's go to another screen of mine, and this is what Google came up with in their search, and I believe this is from like the Oxford Dictionary or something. This is from Oxford Languages. All right, misogyny is the dislike of, contempt, or ingrained prejudice against women. Prejudice, prejudgment. Wow. I guess that's believing that women are nothing but baby machines or something, baby factories. I don't believe that, but we'll get into my beliefs a little later. And then we'll go with the dictionary.com version, which is a little thicker. Dictionary.com is a little thicker. And it says, where is it? There you go. Hatred, dislike, or mistrust of women manifested in various forms of, such as physical intimidation, abuse, sexual harassment, and rape, social shunning, and ostracism, etc. Second thing is ingrained and institutionalized prejudice against women's sexism. All right. I don't believe I really fit into any of those definitions. That's just me. I don't necessarily have I don't necessarily have any kind of disdain, distrust, or ill will towards women. I want all women to be great. I'm all for equal rights for women. I'm all for women. I'm all for women doing what they want to do, women having all the options that they see fit. I'm all for women having free will and choice. I mean, women are human beings too, and if they want to do something, by all means, they should be able to do it. That's the world we live in. And when I say things like that, it surprises people. That that's where I'm coming from. But I really do believe, I really am like in belief that, like, women, you can do whatever you want. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not going to fight you for it. If that's what you want to do, that's what you want to do. I just believe in consequences as well. But I also don't believe in putting women on a pedestal just because they're women. If you want to be equal, you're going to be on the same playing field as everybody else. I learned a long time ago. Go back to this one. I learned a long time ago that there were certain things that women could get away with that I couldn't. Even when I was in fourth or fifth grade, some girl who was actually one of my Facebook friends now, I remember she hit me. And I was a young boy, of course. She hit me, and my parents told me, like, you shouldn't hit girls. But they also said to me, if if she wants to step up like a man, she needs to be prepared to take the consequences like a man. And I try my best to avoid confrontation. I'm not a very confrontational person unless you want to have a verbal spat. But physical confrontation, that's not my jam. So I remember she hit me, and I do remember I like punched her like dead in the chest, and she cried. And she looked at me like I wasn't supposed to do it. But in my mind, you in my mind, you hit me. You hit people back. She was very
surprise, motherfucker.
Yeah, I mean, you hit people back. What else did you expect? For every action is an equal and opposite reaction. But I was the one who got in trouble, and that kind of just told me that okay, now we're playing in two different places here. She was very surprised. I was very surprised that I got in trouble. Sitting, in front of the teacher, like,
bruh,
what did I do to deserve this? You know what I mean? But I didn't get suspended or anything. Played it off, not played it off, but I didn't get suspended or anything. They kind of, I won't say swept it under the rug, but they definitely, they definitely, they didn't do much because I think at that time too they understood, or they also believed, well, if she hit him first and he reacted, but it told me that apparently we're acting on two different set of rules. So that's kind of where I kind of noticed that there was a difference between men and women. Now let me jump ahead to the future and talk about how this even came up this week. From my boy Fish, it's funny how same motherfuckers call you that, but turn a blind eye to misandry. Yeah, nobody pays attention to the stuff that happens to men. Nobody calls out misandry. Many people don't even know what misandry is. But I'll talk about that later. Because it's a part of the conversation here. So the origin of the topic, where does this come from? So, like I said earlier, I've been called a misogynist for a very long time, or people have said that I have misogynistic views. When I say things on social media, for some reason, people get provoked by it, no matter how neutral I feel it is. People are provoked by the things that I say. I respond to people in very short, direct terms, and then they respond back with emotion, and then I have to tell them, like, no, that's not right, or, you got the wrong idea, or this, that, and third. What about this? What about that? And by the end of it, many people have come to try to call me a misogynist. So much so, actually, that even my mother she didn't call me one, but she asked me if I hated women. And she said some of the things that I say on social media make it seem as though I don't like my mother. I love my mother. I actually grew up in a family full of women. I grew up in a family full of women, as most Black people do. I had my dad and my brother in the house, of course. My mom was the middle of three sisters. We spent a lot of time with her family. I got to know a lot of women in her family. My grandmother on my dad's side is one of my favorite people. I have two aunts on his side, two aunts on my mom's side, and a bunch of her other family members. Growing up, I was always kind of chasing women. And believe it or not, like, you're not supposed to do that sort of thing, but I was always chasing women. And even when I was in middle school, high school, college, most of my friend circle, I don't say most of my friend circles, but a lot of the people that I hung out with on a regular basis happened to be women. Now, later down the road, I kind of realized that I hung out with them because I was attracted to them. Some of them were actually really good friends. We look after each other. They serve their purpose. Like most women, I feel, are really good soundboards, and they actually, like, it tickled my mind a bit. But most women I know are just very good at listening to you, and sometimes that's what you need. And especially when I was going through different things, like it was always my female friends who were there to help me feel better. So I don't have any disdain towards them or anybody in my family. That's just where my life's always been. So jumping to this week, I'm in a Facebook group. Shout out to them. And there are several posts that pop up in the group that have to deal with, of course, the soup du jour, um, gender stuff these days, gender and relationships. Like I said, I've always been doing this thing, but lately, in the last few months, with the explosion of Kevin Samuels, there's been more attention drawn to my page because some of the things that he would say, I've been saying for years. It's just now there's a face to it. So in this group, there are a lot of things that are said, whether it be, dudes are dusty and broke. It be women don't, women, you can't talk to women about your issues because they will use it as ammunition. All kinds of things that people of the opposite sex just accept as kind of their truth. But I will admit that within the last between January and April, I was very, very, very intense on the issue because I feel like what I did was experience what they call red pill rage, which is when you figure out, a lot of the things that you've been lied to about. If you haven't seen The Matrix, you take the red pill or the blue pill. The blue pill is you just accept things for how they are and you don't ask any questions. The red pill is you ask a bunch of questions and find out how deep the rabbit hole goes. And so, of course, I'm a truth type person. And so the red pill is a bit more attractive to me. And when I found the red pill, because I've always been looking at content like from Patrice O'Neal back in like 2014 to all the way up to now, with like Kevin Samuels, Fresh and Fit and everything. I've always been interested in the truth and what's really going on, because what I found is that a lot of narratives that I was told as a child just weren't true, especially in my dating world. But I experienced what they call red pill rage, is when you figure out what the truth really is and how much you've been lied to, and then you express some kind of frustration with it one way or another. Some guys experience it the way I did. You go through, there's a spectrum. Some guys experience it for a couple of weeks and then they move on from it. Other guys go as far as becoming black pill and just not playing by the rules at all and not even wanting to deal with women. For me, I was very stressed out between January and April because I figured out this truth. And what I spent a lot of time doing on my social media page anyway was trying to communicate this truth to other people. Now, what I didn't understand was how stubborn people could be on social media. People want to be right. They want to hold on to their narratives. And really, people can make themselves into any character they want to be when it comes to, being on the keyboard, I being on the laptop or keyboard or phone. I think I finally understood what was it Meek Mill had said about Twitter fingers, or Drake, whoever it was. Like, I understand what Twitter fingers is now, or thumb thugging, as Dormtainment would say. People can be whoever they want to be on social media, so the truth doesn't even matter. The truth is subjective. If I say common truth that men hold dear to them, common truth men hold dear to them. If you can't talk to a woman about your issues because eventually she'll use them against you, right? Many men would agree to that. I just didn't make it up myself. But it's something that I've noticed as well. But when you communicate that to people in social media in these groups, they're like, "Oh, that's your truth. You can tell a woman stuff, and she won't look at you any different." But most men will still tell you that's not true. So, through this rage, I made post after post after post after post after post, and I don't necessarily say I was necessarily attacking women. I was more or less kind of just telling unflattering truths about who women were and what was going on. So within these groups, I've actually kind of fell out with some people, like people who would like hit me up in private, didn't stop hitting me up because apparently I became too much for them. And it's understandable, especially when you're talking about, they're going to see this video and they're going to say some things about it, but I really don't care. Especially when you say things about single mothers, women who are overweight, women who are masculine, women who aren't cute but still ask for a I call it highly valued man now, because that just means, of course, that many women want that guy. Like that guy has a value to the community. High value is whatever. But when you deal with women who single moms, overweight, in no man's land, 35 and up, they tend to get a little bit more upset. So people fell out. And these are all the women who, in this group anyway, who kind of fell out with me. So what happens in this Facebook group I'm in is every week we have a Zoom call, and I'm on the call. I'm just chilling, playing video games, laughing, joking, having a good time. And somebody asked me, so Ron, what is it like? What did you go through to make you go so crazy on social media? Which at that point, I kind of knew that this was some kind of intervention, because there was like 12 people in there, and I guess most of them knew what the hell was going on. And so I told them same thing I just told you, red pill rage. I don't hate women. And then this one young lady in particular referred to a post that she had, where she had asked if she had asked men, what does it mean for a woman to be your piece? And I said the following. I said, don't make my life harder. Tend to me when I'm stressed out. Sex, sandwich, silence. I thought that was pretty straightforward. I could have just said, like I always do, feed me, fuck me, leave me alone sometimes. That's usually how I put it. But when it came to this particular post, I just used that reference: sex, sandwich, silence. Don't stress me out. Don't make my life harder. Tend to me when I'm stressed out. That's how you be my piece, right? She brought that up, saying that you just reduce women to cooks and tell them to be quiet, and you tell them to be quiet, and all they're good for is sex. I'm like, that's not what I said. I just said that's how you be his piece. I don't know what else you wanted me to say in that. Like, does be his piece also mean like have your own job and career and do your thing, girl? No, you asked me about being his piece. I'd say these are the things that make her his piece. And then she said, well, you don't see how your trend, your pattern of comments would make me think that. I was like, no, I do. I was like, but you picked like the worst example to call me a misogynist. You asked the question how a woman could be his piece, and that's what I said. Pretty straightforward. Most men would agree that. Nobody disagreed with it. And then she also brought up something I said a long time ago about women and their careers, and she was like, you also said that my career as a woman doesn't matter as much as a man's. Which is also not anything I've ever said. I just said that men don't care about your career as much as you do. When I like listening to Fresh and Fit, and one of the analogies he uses is he asks the women on the show, if you don't never watch Fresh and Fit, it's two guys and they all have these discussions with women, and one of the analogies he uses when he says men don't care about your career or your money, he asks the women, he's like, how would you feel if a man came up to you and said, yo, I got like 30 pairs of Jordans at the crib, and I got this one, and I got that one, and I got that one. And most of the women would say, I don't care. He said, that's exactly how men feel when you talk about your careers and your money. It's a bonus. It tells us something about you, but men don't evaluate you based on your career. And usually, but the higher up you go, the worse evaluation you're going to get. So I never would say that a woman's career doesn't matter, but for some reason, that's how she took it. The conversation was ended after a while, and what I can say though is that what I can say is that by the time the conversation was over, I had a pretty good understanding of why she was so bugged out by it. Because it turns out, as she shared, and I'm not saying her name, and if she thinks that I'm, putting her business out there, that's on you, because I'm not saying names and nobody knows who you are except the people in the group. But by the time the conversation was over, she had shared with us that her father um was a bit verbally and emotionally abusive because he had girls and I guess he didn't want girls, so he always tried to be better than everybody in the house. I'm assuming, and I'm not going to assume what her siblings and whatever, who her siblings and whatever were, but she was just like, let's see, she was just saying that, like, oh, my father, he did this and that. And I'm like, oh, that's why you're so offended by what I said, because you felt like I was minimalizing you as a woman. And I was like, that's not what I do. I don't feel like I do that. If I do, please tell me. This is exactly why I'm here to have this conversation. Then a couple of days ago, I shared this video where this carnival ride, and I'm going to pull it up here. This carnival ride was getting ready to tip over, and my comment was, look who jumped up and helped everybody went on this ride, right? I'll turn this down. Fair use. I'm gonna fair use the hell out of this. So as you can see, it's one of those like pendulum rides or whatever, and it was about to tip back. But look who the first people to hop on to try to hold it down were. It was a bunch of men. Now, this is just one angle of the situation. And as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There's at least 20 people who jumped on this ride to hold it down, right? Now, my post had said, look who came to the rescue to hold the ride down. It was men. Now, my post wasn't to say like women suck, look how great men are. It was to say, for all those women who think that men are useless and men are pointless and men don't do anything, look who are the ones who are there to risk their lives against the machine to help the people who are stuck on the ride. It's men. Men are biologically designed to defend people. It's one of those parts about toxic masculinity that they don't talk about. There's a spectrum of things on the masculine spectrum, and protection is one of them. Now, that protection does involve some aggression. You have to get aggressive sometimes. And then there's a spectrum with that too. There are some men who are really, really aggressive to the point of rage, and they don't have any kind of control over their rage. And then there is, on the other side of the spectrum, men who don't protect at all. They stand back and just watch and be afraid. But men are biologically designed to protect. So my comment was just look at what all the men did. And somebody popped up my post, I won't say his name, and you can go see it for yourself. Actually, did I delete it? I don't know. But somebody hopped on my post and just hit me with a guy hit me with the who hurt you? Who hurt you? How did you, like, why is it that everything you say seems to be like so against women? And I'm like, y'all picked the strangest post to call me a misogynist. Who hurt you? Who hurt you? Why are you so against women? When I said, look what these men did that was so great. This is one of the most pro-masculine posts I've ever put up in my life. And then I get asked about being a misogynist. That doesn't make any sense to me. And it really got me thinking. I'm like, yo, do people really think I'm like out here hating women? They don't know, like they don't know. I mean, people just don't know. I mean, it's social media. People don't know. I kind of have to look at it now, kind of like the comment sections uh on YouTube videos. Like people just don't know. So I'm like, yo, who you really think I don't like women? I hate women, and that's just not the case. But what I've learned over the years is that if you say anything that either provokes the thoughts or emotions of women that goes against anything that they've been taught, it's misogyny. If it hurts their feelings, it's misogyny. Whether it's true or not, it depends on how you say it. Because if you make a woman feel bad about something, it's misogyny. That boggles my mind because I've always been a person of truth. Now, people would say, oh, that's your truth. But many of the things that I speak of are what people would consider universal truths. Like, let's just say, I have no problem admitting that men cheat, right? Men have sex with women outside of their marriages or outside of their bonds. Perfectly fine to admit that. Cool. Nobody challenges me on that. But when I say, when a man cheats, it's not personal. He's really just like, you know, having sex. It's like, well, if he's gonna do that, he might as well just be single. I'm like, a lot of guys don't have sex with other women in preparation to be single. They just have sex with women that have sex with women. They can still love their wives all the same. Universal truth. I don't know too many guys. I won't say I don't know too many, but it's very possible for a man to have sex with another woman and still be in love with his wife. Right? Something's universal. Well, maybe that's your truth, is what I get told. No, this is very common. It's very common. Infidelity's been around as long as people have been trying to pair bond, as long as people have been trying to be monogamous. Infidelity's been around. And the narrative has always been the same. A man could go have sex with a bunch of other women, come back home, and still take care of his family. But because of that, when they say, well, what about if a woman does it? If a woman does it, there's a really good chance that she's out the door because she built an emotional connection to the guy and she's probably planning on leaving. That's misogynistic. No, it's not misogynistic. It's reality. Because a lot of times, if a woman goes to have sex with another man, she had to go to a really dark place in order to do it. She had to be disgusted with her boyfriend somehow or her man somehow. She had to have her feelings hurt. She had to want to get revenge. It's usually not just because I'm horny and this guy's here. Usually doesn't happen that way. And if it does, it's probably because she suffered some kind of abuse in her past. It is what it is. That's misogynistic. Not misogynistic. It's just the truth. Because if women had sex like guys, then nobody would be married. Nobody would be trying to get married. Well, nowadays, you see how that's kind of flipping because now, as in the body count episode a few weeks ago, you can kind of see women these days are they want to live like guys or say they're living like guys, having sex with every Tom, Dick, and Dick that they can. So, am I a misogynist simply because my thoughts provoke the thoughts and emotions of women? If that's what misogyny is, I guess, but I don't believe that's the case for me. I just ask questions that make people really question themselves, and I challenge the narratives that people push that they've been taught for years, which have been disproven a lot, like the wage gap. The wage gap is not the wage gap because men somewhere decided we're going to pay women less. It makes no sense. If a woman gets paid 75 cents, roughly 75 cents for every dollar that a man makes, if I own a company, why would I hire a bunch of men into my company when I can get away with paying women a lot less, especially when businessmen are all about their profit? It makes no sense. I would just hire a bunch of women to do the work, right? Now, I will say the one thing that women tend not to argue with is the idea that men are physically stronger. Until you say, well, what if you're getting attacked and you can't fight the guy off, and they're like, "Oh, I'll get my gun then." All right, that dude's faster than you, stronger than you. So if he has you in a full Nelson, you can't get to your gun. You're gonna have to submit. Ooh, bad word for women.
Bruh.
Submit. You're gonna have to submit to that guy. It is what it is because he's stronger than you. But for some reason, get offended when women are called the weaker vessel. It makes no sense to me. It's a lot of contradictions within that. So anything I say that's pro man is not necessarily anti woman, but for some reason people tend to think that it is. Just because you talk about men's issues doesn't mean you take anything from women. For example, if you bring up the amount the sorry, if we want to talk about, let's say, women going out after dark and feeling unsafe. Fair. You feel unsafe. Women are very vulnerable in that instance because you're out in the dark. The darkness brings wild things out of everybody, and it's very realistic for you to feel unsafe. You're very vulnerable. You can't fight. You hardly fight anybody off, and a lot of dirty things happen in the dark. But then you challenge that by saying men are most likely the victims of. Men are more likely to be the victims of violent crime. How could you say that women are out here being like? No, it's just true. Men are more likely to be the victims of violent crime. That's not misogynistic, and that doesn't take away anything from women, but it's true. Um, just because I want, or even if I say like, crap, I should have came up with a better example. I'll come up with one later. All right. Uh, and then on the flip side of that, and also when it comes to my stance on women and how things are working, um, going through my history a little bit, I've again spent a lot of time with a lot of women. I've dated a lot. I'm 31. I lost my virginity at 16. And I could tell you some things about my past, which you may or may not believe, but I'm going to leave it there. But just trust and know that I've had enough experiences with women to understand and know what you're dealing with when you are dealing with women. And I've also kind of grown numb to the bullshit that comes along with it. I was having a conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago about that. And he was telling me that I had a conversation with a friend a couple weeks ago, and he was telling me about another friend of ours whose body count was in like the 300s or 400s. Uh, and he was like, "Yeah, he's been with so many women, like he's just kind of numb to like his emotions and empathy towards women is kind of numb." And I was like, "No, he just understand that it's not, it's no longer the fantasy. He's not buying into the fantasy because he's had it all." And I guess that's kind of where I stand too, is like I've been there, done that, you know, and I've been taught things about women all my life that that within my dating experiences, I found out were just incorrect. Um, I remember being on the phone when I was a kid, like, you shouldn't talk so much when you're on the phone with women. They don't want to hear you do all that talking, yada yada yada. And so later down the road, like, I would actually like not talk. And then come to find out later when I actually started talking again, uh women would actually appreciate that I could have a conversation. Because I found out that most guys can't. What you doing? You beautiful. What you doing? I like and this little short stuff like that. So they appreciate that I can have the conversations later down the road. So that's just one example of things. But I've also found out things about women and sex. Like I used to think that like all the girls who are really in the church were like all chaste and like hard to crack. And then they in college, they were the first ones to end up pregnant. You know? thought girls wanted nice guys, really nice guys who were really sweet, wrote poems, letters, all this stuff. And I remember at one point I was actually like damn near begging girls to be my girlfriend, and come to find out that's not how you go about it. There are just a lot of different things that I had to learn along the way that really just shattered the reality of what being and dating women is like. And then as I got older into my late 20s, early 30s, I'm 31 now, late 20s, early 30s, just dealing with different types of women who are in their careers, women who aren't in their careers, women with kids. There are a lot of different things that I learned along the way that I really just started sharing with other people. But for some reason, especially when you share it on social media, it, it's not accepted as truth. I guess because people still want to believe in their delusions. They want to believe that women are sugar spice, everything nice, and men are problems. Men cause all the problems that women have and everything else. And I just don't find that to be true. Right. So when I tell women like, oh, you had some fault in it too. It's like, but you're excusing him for his behavior. I'm like, no, I'm not. I was like, but everybody has their part. If let's just say a girl says her boyfriend is controlling or whatever, right? And then she says to me like, yeah, he tried to tell me what I could and couldn't wear when I went out. And I was like, well, how did he tell you? And he was like, what? And she was saying like, well, you probably shouldn't wear this outside. And I was like, do you know why he said that? And she's like, yeah, he said that, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that's controlling to you? That he told you like, hey, you shouldn't wear that because when you go out, guys are gonna come like harass you. And you think that's controlling? And also some guys just don't know how to express it. So he might say, hey, don't wear that, but he might not be able to articulate why not. Doesn't necessarily mean he's controlling. How the hell did I get here? Who needs to work on their communication skills? I think everybody has an issue with communication skills these days because everybody's so tapped into social media and everybody's so in their own worlds and they stay at home that social skills tend to waver. So we really don't know how to communicate with each other, especially between men and women, because men have been taught for a very long time to satisfy women. Um, and what they should do to please a woman and appease a woman, but women have been taught what it is to satisfy and appease a man, even in like simple conversation. And so a lot of times when men communicate and talk to women, women are just like, I can't believe you said that. Well, he's a man. He's going to say things the way he says things. It is what it is. But they just don't know. Let's see. And I took some notes on these things. I feel like the real misogynists are really those guys who they don't want to get married. They don't want to get married. They really have a disdain for. They don't want to get married. They really have a disdain for women, and they really just treat women. They have no desire for any kind of interaction or partnership with a woman. I think those are real misogynists. They don't trust and they hate women. But also, a lot of guys have been hurt. Like, misogyny isn't some title you have to wear for the rest of your life. It could be a period of time. But those guys who, like, I know people who would rather fly to foreign countries to have sex with women who barely speak English, prostitutes most times, fly back home and then just, stay away from women here. That sounds a little bit more like hatred to me. Those men who stop dealing with women completely, those men who only think of women as sexual objects. They only have women in their Rolodex, really just for their Holodex. Really, they don't want to be with women for real. They just want to have sex and go about their way. The older I get, the more I understand it, but also I still want my partnership. I still want to get married. I still want to have a family. I switched to wine because now I'm in my feminine. This is Primo Amore Moscato. because I know that the hood rats like Moscato. It's a thing. Um, but I think those are the real misogynists. And then the people who kind of like just shit on the things that women do and like want them to be different, or just really have a disdain for who they are. They have negative commentaries all the time, but can't really appreciate and don't have a balance for it. They're disgusted by it. I have balance. I like to think people don't recognize the balance when I give it. I often do. I often will say, like, women are very good at nurturing, making you feel good, and they do serve a purpose in a man's life. I can do a lot of things on my own, but women are there to make things easier for you. I think we're supposed to complement each other, yin and yang, good and bad. Sorry, good and evil, like or you know, just the balance that men and women provide to each other. I'm all for it, but some people just don't even buy into it anymore. And then I also have to say too that I really do think they tell women what they want to hear. That gives them false positive and harms them later. Yeah, I'm not about just telling women what they want to hear, because we all live in this world, and what we tend to find out is that when you take the truth away from somebody, or you don't tell them the truth, it ends up biting them in the ass later. And a lot of women wonder why, like years later, after they get married and do all these other things with their lives, that things didn't pan out the way that they wanted them to. And that's simply just because you've been lied to. You can have a career, girl. It's all good. Have a career and have your kids later. But they don't tell you about the women in their early, mid, and late 30s who are, yeah, it's possible for you to have a kid, but a lot of those women have uh, treatments in order to make their wombs ready and their bodies ready for it, because they've either been A, too stressed out all their life, or B, they haven't been taking care of themselves, and C, they've missed out on their prime years to have kids. The first 2 years, the first 2 years, in my opinion, of women being like prime for babies, is illegal to have kids here. So like 16 to 24, those are like prime years for women to have kids. But when women are in college, we tell them, or women are become of adult age, we tell them like go have their experience, go live life or whatever. And they end up waiting too long, because because then like shit happens, then they want to be fulfilled, then they have to go find themselves, and then they get into their 30s and mid 30s and late 30s and wonder why dudes don't want to put babies in them. That's another topic for another day. Um so another thing about misogyny, one thing that we don't really talk about often, is how I think modern women, quote unquote, modern women are probably the biggest culprits, one of the biggest culprits of misogyny in the culture today. And I say that because many modern women will look at the things that older women have done with disgust and disdain. Um, According to many modern women, grandma and grandpa were married, and grandma stuck with grandpa because she was dependent on him for his money, because he made all the money, and she had no other choice but to just stick with him because he made all the money. And so she subjected herself to abuse and all these other things because she was dependent on him, which, if you ask me, paints a very negative picture to our elders as like helpless women who were so weak that they needed a man to be around. When in all actuality, many of those women, they fought side chicks, and they fought their husbands, and they even had jobs themselves. But when we look at what those women were, or when many women look at what those women were, they do want the relationship to last as long as grandma and grandpa did, but they don't want to do the things that grandma did in order to make it work, which is insane to me. Granted, we live in a completely different world, we're in a completely different world, and the dynamics have changed a lot. But in order for you to do the things that grandma and grandpa did or have that long lasting marriage, you have to do the thing. I'm sorry. In order for you to have the long lasting marriage that they had, you had to do the things that they did. Traditional gender roles. It usually works out pretty well, despite the fact that you want to call them sexist, and men can cook too and take care of kids too. Traditional gender roles tend to work because they're realistic, and that's in nature. Women tend to be better with kids. Hell, there are a lot of women who won't even let their husbands watch their own kids because women tend to be better with kids and men tend not to be. Men are better at providing for long periods of time, because a woman can provide, but then after about 5 to 10 years, she gets all stressed out and stuff. And it's like, I can't do this. I know way too many women who like. Here's just an observation, and this isn't a bash or anything, but when I go up and down my timeline, I see way too many women and a lot of different women who complain about their jobs. I'm so tired. I don't want to go to work. Can I just sit down and like, where's my sugar daddy? I don't ever see that from men. Men will be like, yeah, I want to hit the lottery. Hardly ever do I see any man ask for a sugar mama. Men are built to do that. Men are built to provide for a long period of time for a lot of different people. Men die early because they stress themselves out trying to provide for people. It is what it is. And then as far as women being misogynist too, cooking and cleaning is beneath most women. If you ask a woman on a date if she can cook and or clean, a lot of them will scoff at you and like, ugh, are you serious? And a lot of men I know who are still dating will say that they are actually better cooks than the women that they go out on dates with, that they get with. And then they're actually far more clean too, as well. We'll give you your car. But if I come over and I gotta step over shit, not a good look. And then they expect the dude to stick around. You don't bring nothing. But that's another conversation. Women feel weird being feminine, and everything feminine is weakness. Yeah. I don't really ever see too many women brag about their femininity. I actually remember on a dating app, this one woman did say, like, she talked about, like, I'm very feminine. And by appearances she was, but she was also from Brooklyn, and she was an attorney. Now, that doesn't scream very feminine to me, but, she was all right. But women don't brag about their femininity. I think what tends to happen these days is like a lot of women try to change the definition of femininity. No longer is it this weak woman who takes care of kids and cooks and cleans and lets the man do whatever he wants while she sits at home and be quiet. Now femininity is, I'm a girl who wears dresses and heels and makeup and lashes, and I still get my shit done because I'm a boss bitch. That's not very feminine. Especially when you talk about you're feminine and you want to challenge dudes on everything. That's not feminine. So yeah. We can talk about women becoming feminine, women being misogynist for a while. I mean, hell, women even scoff at other women who say they want to be housewives. Women who want to be housewives are frowned upon. They get talked about. For what? Because they want to be housewives? Feminism was all about choice and equality. feminism was about giving women the freedom to choose what they wanted to do with their lives. But we've reached a point where women who want to be housewives kind of frowned upon. Well, I think even now, I think now what it is kind of jealousy because a lot of women want to be housewives, but a lot of women can't. Like 70% of women have to work, because most guys aren't making enough money to where their woman doesn't have to work. Or if they are making the money to where a woman doesn't have to work, women don't want to scale down their lifestyles in order for that to happen. Because if I'm a guy who's making 65K a year, and you want to be a housewife, well, there's a really good chance that we're gonna have to stay in like a $600-$700 apartment if I don't have a house already, because I got to be able to pay all the bills and make sure you stay up with your nails and hair and all that other stuff. It's not gonna happen. Let's see. I took a bunch of notes earlier. And much like I thought, for those who think I'm a misogynist, they don't show their faces around here. They don't show their faces. Like I said, many of them have blocked me or unfollowed me, which is perfectly fine. But yeah, women can be misogynist too. All right. Where are we at? We got 4 people here watching, 1 on YouTube, 3 on the book, which is amazing. All right. Let me just go through my notes real quick. I'm gonna try to hit on some points that I can talk about for maybe the next 15, 20 minutes. We'll see. Might come up with some interesting things here. Oh yeah, I've been asked before, like, how do you know what women think and want? You're not a woman, and I believe that usually comes from women because I don't think they understand the dynamics of dating. Men have to study women in order to get them. Men are the hunters, women are the hunted, and that's just reality. Like, women gonna walk around, play the game on easy mode, everything's gonna come to you. Whereas men, like, I actually have to talk to you. I have to go in, talk to you, make sure I don't say nothing stupid, and then maintain not saying anything stupid until I get to whatever my goal is, whether that be to have sex or marry you or whatever. Like, I have to be able to play the game with you, which is why pimps are so successful. There are not too please, somebody, anybody, find me a woman who is pimping a bunch of men to give up their penis and then give her the money. Most women who are pimps like that are women who are using men for their money. They'll go out on dates and stuff with them, but they won't have sex with them. That's pimping for women. And then those women who are able to do that, they're only able to do that because they study men just like men study women. They know what men want. They know how to entice them. They know what to say to get what they want. That's a real alpha woman. She's using her femininity to get something out of men. Alpha woman really doesn't exist. You're just a masculine woman arguing about my shit. I'm assertive, yada yada yada. No, real alpha women know how to use being a girl to manipulate men. I know a few of those girls who, when I met in college, I was like, "You're going to be a housewife." Like, and they were raised pretty much to be housewives, to be spoiled by men, and they were raised for a certain caliber of man. Lo and behold, those women actually grew up to be with those caliber of men. That's a real alpha woman. Let's see. I've been doing this for years. Everybody who's been my Facebook friend for at least 3 years has known that my posts have been pretty consistent. It's just now with Kevin Samuels and the whole manosphere coming mainstream, it has a face, and now everybody's saying like, "Oh, who hurt you?" and all this other stuff, like things I've heard for years. I've been doing this for years. I'm never gonna back down from it. The truth is the truth. Um, Women don't study men. Anything that depicts women as anything less than men is misogyny. Yeah, that's pretty true. I remember a few weeks ago, I was trying to think about things that were stereotypically masculine. And what I found is that, or what I found in even my own thought processes, is that things that I figured were stereotypically masculine, women could say that it was theirs too. But there was nothing that was stereotypically feminine that men could claim as theirs as well. So it's almost like, I hate to say it, it's going to be on tape, but like it seems as though women's goal is to be more manly, and that's unattractive. Anyway, women truly don't know their femininity. Yeah, I wanted to do a stream a couple of weeks ago about that. How women, I think a lot of women hate being women, and they want to put it on men. They want to make men the women, and they want to be the men, but their nature doesn't it won't happen that way. I feel like a lot of women don't want to be women. Like anytime you talk about things that are like naturally feminine, such as being weaker, protected, wanting to be taken care of, women just fight back against it. Like, no, I don't need a man to take care of me. But at the end of the day, yeah, they do. We've gotten to a point now that where women deny their femininity so much that there's a lot of women these days who don't want to have children, and the birth rate in the United States and a lot of Western countries are super low because of it. And I don't know if it has anything to do with no, it's just women don't want to be women. They don't like, and they don't understand their feminine power. The femininity is a silent power, and masculinity is more of an overt power. The most powerful women in the world, you probably don't even know, because they're sitting behind some really powerful guy and they're in his ear. There is silent counsel. If anybody's ever seen don't not Don't Be a Menace. If anybody's ever seen Coming to America, the one that was on Amazon Prime, the second one, there's a scene where Hakeem goes into the bedroom, and Lisa is drunk, and she's giving him this lecture about, tradition or whatever, and he's like, "Oh yeah, you got a point." That's what femininity is. Femininity is not going out and doing it yourself and telling a guy what to do because you have all the great ideas. It's being in the room with him silently as he makes the decisions, because you want to be his advisor, because at the end of the day, he's still going to take all the shit that comes along with the decisions that's made, whether he listens to you or not. He's going to take all that shit that you don't want to deal with. That's femininity. But who am I? I'm a man. I don't know what femininity is. Uh, I don't know what femininity is. I'm just a guy who reads a lot, who's dated a lot of women, and who is pretty smart by my own admission. A lot of other people will tell you the same things. Uh, if anybody wants to join in on the conversations, by all means, the lines are open to discuss things. I really don't have much else going on. Got my wine here. As you can see, I got a little display here for my fragrances. Add a little light to it because I'm fancy. I was at Walmart looking for lights, and when I found something I really liked, I was on the phone with my mom, and this is how old I am. I'm on the phone with my mom, and I was like, it's crazy the things that you get excited for as an adult. I get excited for this little light here. So I'm like, oh, I get to display my fragrances in such a cool way. So when people come over, I get to say, hey, look at this. And then they get to smell stuff. I even got like little coffee grounds here so they can cleanse their palates. But no, am I wrong? What's going on here? I know my critics and detractors don't even know that I'm live right now because they unfollow me, and that's perfectly fine. Oh yeah, let's talk a little bit about misandry too. I think this is gonna be my last topic, and then I'm gonna call it a night for this. But let's talk about misandry a little bit. Boy, Darius Senator Luke Cage, he said this earlier. It's funny how the same people call you that. He's talking about misogynist, but turn a blind eye to misandry because male hate is fun and cool. It's fun to make fun of a guy who, or not even that. Let's just say that there's a viral video of a woman who is raging out on a guy. She starts beating in his car and all kinds of stuff. Women will get on there and be like, yeah, you go, girl. He must have did something really, really bad to deserve that. But that dude he had damage done to his car. He's gonna have to pay for that. There's no empathy for that. The constant repost and replays of men being cheaters. There's a post going around right now where this woman is like Cater to You is playing in the background. This woman is giving a man plates, and it's like, if you want to know how to keep a man. And every woman I know who shared that video, whether it be with me or on their page, has said, there's no way you can keep a man. He's still going to cheat. That is not why you keep a man. There is no way, and even men know this when it comes to women, there is no way you can keep your woman or your partner from having sex with somebody else. Your job is to keep them with you for your lifelong partnership, especially for a man. And we know that for long periods of time, men have always, as long as, like I said earlier, as long as marriages and pair bonding has been around, infidelity has been a thing. And men, of course, are probably the most sloppy proponents of it. Men are probably the most sloppiest when it comes to cheating. So we get found out more, and we're, of course, more honest about it. But if a man really loves you and he wants to be with you, he's not going to promise his sex to you. I've never heard a man get married and say, like, when I get married, it's just gonna be me and my wife for the rest of my life. We just gonna do the damn thing. We're gonna have sex all the time for the rest of my life. I'm gonna just be with my wife. I've never heard a man say that. I've heard that from women. I've heard women say, like, when I get married, it's just gonna be me and my husband. And that's all. Like, it's just gonna be us. And if things get stale, we're gonna spice things up, and we might, introduce toys or have a threesome. And men don't talk like that. But there's this constant thing about men cheating, where women cheat just as often as men. 1 out of every 3 men say that they cheat on their spouse. 1 out of every 4 women say they cheat on their spouse. But nobody says anything about misandry. Women can make fun of guys for being broke all the time. No brokies, no dusties. No ashiness from guys. Kevin Samuels is gay because he must not like women because he's degrading black women, whatever fuck that means. The misandry is fine. The misogyny is not. It's this one, like, again, Kevin Samuels reference. It's this one-way aggression that it seems to be when it comes to men and women. Like, women can say whatever they want about men. Men can't say anything about women unless it's empowering and uplifting. Because every challenge I have to every challenge I have, the things I say about women is, why don't you empower women? Why don't you uplift women? Women get enough uplifting empowerment, but you still need to get the consequences. You need to get this donkey, as Charlemagne would say. You get this donkey. You want equal rights and responsibilities, it comes with equal consequences. And you need to be called out for your shit. Because that's how human beings are. For some reason, I'm bird walking now. And it might be the wine, it might be the whiskey, whichever one kicked in. Women tend to have this idea, I've noticed, especially on social media, that you can just say something to somebody and expect that it's gonna be ingrained in their heads. You don't have to like Myron Gaines would say, punish bad behavior. If a woman shows up late for a date, tell her to pay for the drinks, right? At least. You could, a lot of women will say, well, you could just tell her not to be late again. I'm sure she wouldn't be. No, you got to reinforce it somehow. Human beings respond to consequence, positive and negative, reinforcement and punishment. And not everything can be reinforced. And if you think just telling somebody is punishment enough, then it's not. Especially as adults. Because as adults, we tend to just brush it off like, oh, well, I'm grown, so fuck it. You have to be able to take the consequences. Another part of misandry, saying that men can't control themselves. No, men can't control themselves. Just a very strong urge inside of us. Go back to my testosterone episode. The testosterone episode will show you that. And then this one is a bit confusing. I wrote this in my notes. I was having a conversation with somebody once about men being willing to date down. Men are willing to date down. Men are willing to date down, and when I talk to women about that, the response is often something along the lines of, well, that says a lot about him, a lot about men. Despite the fact that many of these women want guys who make more money than them. Like,
what?
Are you serious? Like,
what?
You want
what?
Men
what?
to
what?
somehow increase their standards,
what?
Date up,
what?
But you
what?
Want a man
what?
Who makes more money than you.
What?
I don't understand that. That makes no sense.
Stupid idiot.
Like, you want men to, for some reason, increase their standards and date up? Make it make sense to me, please. Please make it make sense to me. But every time like something happens with every time like a misandrous post is shared, nobody says anything. Kind of like in that group that I'm in that wanted to have the powwow about me being a misogynist. In that group, every day there is some kind of post about how men are creepy, men are disgusting, men are broke, men are liars, men are cheaters, men are this, men are that. And the minute I post something that's like, women will use your emotions against you, all hell breaks loose. It's World War III. I'm a misogynist and everybody hates me. But women can say all these things about men. You can get called gay. You can get asked who hurt you, which all of that pretty much minimizes and diminishes and degrades every feeling that a man has. Yet you still want men to express their feelings to you. Does that make sense? No, it does not. It doesn't.
Nope.
Don't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So what are we really doing here? Like, why is misandry okay, but misogyny is not? In this world that we live in, misogyny is horrible and disgusting. Misandry is perfectly cool. And really, like Patrice O'Neal says, and I said in the beginning, I don't like living in a world where everything a woman is good and everything a man is bad. I'm paraphrasing. I don't. I don't feel like I'm a misogynist. I don't have any hatred or disdain towards women. I am frustrated with some of the things that happen because I really do expect better from people who say that they want equal rights and they're so smart and they want to be great. Well, part of greatness, you got to take the bad that comes with greatness too. There is a comment I saw on a YouTube video that said women want the power of men, the privilege of women, and the accountability of children. Nothing is a woman's fault. And in all of my posts, in all of my posts on my timeline, whether it be a woman who is a so-called feminist or a woman who kind of, is truthful in her nature, none of those women hold themselves accountable completely for anything that went wrong. And I've never heard a woman say, like, this is where women are fucking up. So when a man says it, it's completely. I watched a video earlier today where a woman was talking about how feminism pretty much overcorrected itself. And one of the comments was saying something about how, if I said this, I would be mansplaining. And it's true. Men can't have any critiques on women. And it's very unfortunate because we're supposed to be able to compliment each other, and at the same time, we're also supposed to be able to tell each other where we fucked up. Whether it be your boyfriend or whatever, your man or your girl, whatever. But as a community, but as men and women, we should be able to communicate our issues with one another, and they be accepted and heard, and things should be fixed. But anytime a man has something to say about a woman that you don't like, ladies, it's not misogyny. You don't like it, and that's perfectly okay, but it's not misogyny. Misogyny is a completely different animal. Misogyny is hatred. I would not be so into trying to, because in my mind, I'm really trying to fix it. I'm really trying to address an issue so it can be addressed. I'm trying to address an issue so people can be introspective and fix it within themselves and make for a better community. So I don't look at it like misogyny. But we should be able to do these things. So like when women talk about men cheating or whatever, it never comes off as like trying to fix it. So I was like, yep, this is what men do. Fuck them niggas. I don't like using the N-word either. But just because a man says something you doesn't like doesn't mean it's misogyny. I am not a misogynist. I hate to say that. I hate that I have to say that, on camera, look directly in the camera and say, I am not a misogynist. People who know me know I am not a misogynist. Do I say things about women that kind of go against the grain and sometimes lean into it a bit much? Yeah. But I'm not a misogynist. I just want women to be better. Especially going back to how I feel about the Black community. In order for us to get the Black community back on track, I truly do believe that we need to get the Black family structure back in order. But in order for us to do that, women have to let go of the control that they've had over our community for years and accept that things haven't been going too well within women's leadership. It hasn't. A lot of our boys are getting left behind, and when their daughters get old enough to date these guys, they're wondering why they can't find anybody. Well, because the single mothers and the female leaderships in their families have weakened them. A lot of women will tell you, and a lot of women would agree that a lot of guys these days aren't real men. They were raised by their moms, and then single moms complain about men not being men. And they do turn around and turn their boys into the same men that they don't want to be with. I think the misogyny really happens when women don't want to accept their femininity. They hate the fact that they're women. They resent the fact that they're women, especially in these struggle situations. Well, that's all I got. I don't want to be on here too much longer. Yeah, they want the accountability. Stop that. Yeah, women. That's my fascia. Women want the privilege, the power of men, the privilege of women, the accountability of children. Yeah. Hardly any man will tell you that they've heard a woman say that something was completely their fault, and it stops there. Yeah, I did that. I messed up. It's completely my fault. Stop. No, it's usually, but you did, and this happened, and it's all kind of rationalization. One of these days, I know I want to do a program on something I teach in one of my classes about defense mechanisms, and I think that'd be pretty interesting to go over. But without further ado, I think I'm gonna end it here. And thank you for tuning in to Waffle Talk with Ronnie. I really enjoyed it, and it's so funny that now I'm doing this, I'm like, man, I could really talk for about an hour and a half. It's crazy. Don't forget to add Waffle Talk Ronnie on YouTube. All right. Let's see how I turn it down. All right. Don't forget to add Waffle Talk Ronnie on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe to your friends. Tell them that you heard some good shit over here. And spread the message, man. I feel like, a lot of people need to hear stuff from other guys. I know one of the reasons why I started doing this is because I started feeling crazy because, I would say the things that I would say and I'd always get challenged, and I never heard other guys kind of, validate me. Guys don't comment on social media and don't use social media like women do. So let's step our game up there. Get the likes up, get the likes up, get the likes up. All right. Always remember that we need to collab with one another, be open, be likable. All right. We need to come together as a people and make shit happen. Like I said, I'm Ronnie. This is Waffle Talk. We'll get this collab thing straightened out because I can't remember the acronym. I'm going to start using it a lot more. Ronnie, this is Waffle Talk. This is the end of my show. I will holler at y'all later. And